Hello. So the question today is, are you constantly ruminating over your narcissist after you've gone no contact? And I know there are a lot of women I've talked to who really struggle with this because they've gone no contact, they've made the break, and yet they can't seem to stop thinking about the narcissist, and they're torn between going back and yet knowing that that's not the answer, but they're still constantly sucked into this vortex of overthinking. So I want to give you 3 simple tips today that will help you to stop ruminating over your narcissist. Now, ruminating on the past and being constantly burdened by thoughts and emotions about your narcissistic relationship can actually make you feel even crazier than you felt during the relationship. And not only that, it also very often leads to other things that make your life even harder and make your recovery even harder. And those things are anxiety and depression, and of course the mother of all of them, low self-worth, which I know so many women I've talked to in my group and women who I've worked with all put this very high on their list of things that are wrong now in their life, that they just don't have any self-worth anymore. Now, the other important thing to know is that all of this just doesn't stop when the relationship stops. Often you think, well, I'm out of the relationship, I've made the decision, I made the break, I've been doing no contact. Why am I still feeling like this? And that's something that a lot of the women I work with still really struggle with. And they're like, you know, how or why do I still feel so bad when I've left this relationships? And sometimes years and years have gone by, but you're still struggling. But the fact is, you're not crazy and you're not going mad. Now, we humans have an ingrained need to do this, to keep going over things in our mind, and most of us experience it. We have to keep going over and over things in our mind because this is especially if something unusual or different or difficult or really good or really bad happens to us. And of course this is much more so the case when it's prolonged traumatic abuse. So the thing to understand is that rumination is actually our brain's attempt to solve problems that we can't solve. We're kind of wired to try and find the solutions and the answers. So when something goes wrong in our life, we go over it and over it in our minds to try and fathom it out and come up with solutions. And that's how we generally deal with things and process things. Now, because narcissistic abuse is so very complex, all your usual rational capabilities have been so badly thwarted that you become stuck in a situation of emotional instability and anxiety that can be very difficult to break out of. And you just can't make sense of what's happened, and you just can't find solutions. So there we have it, you circle back round again. Now, this, of course, is really fertile ground for rumination. And, of course, that's what then leads to anxiety and depression and those feelings of low self-worth. And that's just to name a few. There are much more serious consequences that can and do arise. And that's things like PTSD or complex PTSD and severe panic attacks. So if you think about all that, it's no wonder that you do keep ruminating over all these scenarios that have gone on during your narcissistic relationship. But there is good news, and that is that you actually can change this. Now, what you truly desire is peace of mind. And what you truly need is to be free of this constant stream of negative thoughts. And most of all, you want to take back your power and recover your sense of self-worth. So, I said I'd share some tips with you, so I'm going to do that now. to help you stop the ruminating and negative thinking, and to give yourself some much needed respite from this painful litany of thoughts, okay? So the first tip, and it sounds simple and it is simple, is to just say stop. Now, I've talked about this in previous videos and I've posted about it, but I still find people ask me this question all the time. You know, I can't, how do I do this? So all you have to do is just, the minute you realise that you're doing this, you just put your hand up and say stop. And you can emphasise on that by imagining a big red stop sign in your mind as you do it. And then the other thing is to physically shift your position. If you're sitting down, stand up. If you're standing, walk to a different place. If you're at home, go and look out the window and think about whatever is in view out there. If you're at work when this happens, go to another place or go outside and get some air. And what this does is it creates an interrupt in your brain. It's interrupting the pattern, and it also makes you very, very aware of how much time you're wasting on all these useless thoughts that are just causing you more pain. Now, the second part of this tip is to create a mantra. So you create a mantra that goes with this exercise. So as soon as you say stop, you then say something like, I'm done with this line of thinking. I'm taking back control of my mind. Or something along those lines that you own, that you've made up, and that makes you feel in control, okay? Now, you will find that you have to do this many times a day, but gradually you'll realise that the flow of negativity is slowing down, and you're actually much more in control of what's going on in your mind. If you do this every time you catch yourself going back over the old ground, and as soon as you're in the new space, you can then take it a step further. And this next step, tip 2 basically, tip 2, is to tune into yourself. And the easiest way to do that is to try a very simple breathing technique and focus on your breath and your being, and swat any thoughts away mentally as soon as they come up. So you can breathe in through your nose, count to 4, hold it for a count of 4, and then breathe out through your mouth for a count of 4, or longer if needs be, as long as it takes to fully exhale the breath, and then do that again, okay? So you keep your focus on your breath, and you keep on counting, and you do this 3 or 4 times. Usually don't need to do it any more than that. You can if you want to though. So then you start using a nurturing phrase as you do the breathing. So you say something like, I love and accept myself, or I am healing my inner being, or anything along those lines that you feel comfortable with. Feel free to make up your own. And then repeat the phrase over and over as you're doing the breathing, without judgment, okay? So do that regularly throughout the day and just see how that works for you. And tip number 3 is a very practical tip, is to distract yourself. So do something to take your mind off the problem. Engage yourself in something that really requires your concentration, such as a mental game like a jigsaw or a crossword puzzle or a fun quiz. There's lots of research that shows that doing online brain games helps to reduce anxiety. So one I've used in the past that I think is really quite fun is called Lumosity. So have a look for Lumosity. You can sign up and play for free, and if you want to upgrade, it's very, very cheap to upgrade, and then you can go to next levels of games and stuff, and I was quite hooked on that at one time. But it's a really nice way to just get your mind off all this stuff that's going on in there, okay? So if you do all these little exercises every single day, as often as you need to, you'll actually find that you start to feel more in control. because every second of respite that you give yourself is giving yourself the chance to heal, and it's giving your brain that much needed break, just that little bit of peace that you need from all this constant negativity. Now, the journey to healing from narcissistic abuse can be difficult and painful, but you have to start somewhere. Now, the main point of all these exercises is to begin to rewire your brain by taking control of it and breaking down the old patterns. Now, when you do all these things consistently, you're actually creating new neural networks in your brain. And this has been supported and proven many, many times, particularly in recent years, with research into brain science and neuroplasticity. So these are real tools that you can work with. Now, of course, these tips are not the be-all and end-all of recovering, but they will help you, and it's a great way to just start believing that you can start taking control and that you can start to play a part in your own healing and your own recovery. The thing is, with narcissistic abuse, especially if you've been involved in multiple abusive relationships and you've had narcissistic parents, this type of abuse creates a complex cocktail of emotions that often require much deeper analysis and therapeutic intervention. And that's where I help women to make major life-changing breakthroughs. But as I said, everyone can start somewhere. So I hope that you find these tips helpful. I'm Maria McMahon. Thank you for joining me. I hope you found this useful, and I will see you again soon. So thank you very much. Bye for now.